Well, Michael is now a Category 4 storm, and there is plenty of watches and warnings across the area, and I want to talk about those first. Right along the Gulf Coast up until Albany, Georgia, there is a hurricane warning in effect, and then all the red you see is going to be tropical storm warnings. That includes Macon, Warner Robins, all the way up to Augusta, and even over towards Wilmington, North Carolina. Another big thing we are tracking is some new tornado watches that have come down. That's not going to be for places like Macon or Warner Robins just yet, but that does include Panama City and Albany. Just about everywhere you're seeing blue does have a tornado watch in effect at this time. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about what exactly is going on with Michael at the moment. Winds at about 140 miles per hour. The reason it strengthened so quickly is because the water is just so warm right now in the northern Gulf of Mexico, about 86 to 87 degrees out there, and the storm's beginning to pick up a little bit of speed as well, which is actually good news overall. We do want the storm to move very quickly so everyone can be done with this thing as soon as possible, but it does look like for now it's still going to be making landfall in the early afternoon later today, somewhere around Panama City or Mexico Beach. Now, another big thing I want to point out, and this isn't something we've seen in quite a long time, is that this storm could be a Category 1 hurricane whenever it moves through the middle Georgia area. So if you look at Macon, Category 1 storm there, early tomorrow morning once it passes us by. And if we take a closer look, you can see just how skinny this cone is versus other ones that we've had. That's because there's a lot more confidence of exactly where this is going to go relative to what we've seen in the past. Florence had a very wide cone of uncertainty. This one much skinnier because it's going to be much faster moving. And that's the biggest thing I want to point out about this storm, is that it's going to be very quickly moving. So you can't compare this to Irma. You can't really compare it to Florence or Harvey. The rain totals aren't going to be there like we saw with those other storms, but the winds are going to be the biggest thing to contest with. So if you look at a place like Macon, Warner Robins, Forsyth, I don't think you're going to be seeing, say, hurricane force winds right there, but if you look further down towards the south, Cordele, Americus, Albany are likely to see those hurricane force winds moving into their area. Now, tropical storm force winds are likely for just about everyone across the mid-state right here, and the further down towards the south you go, the stronger those winds are going to be. Now, flooding is also going to be a possibility out there. Again, I don't think this is going to have impressive totals like what we saw with Florence or Harvey, but there is a moderate chance, particularly around the Macon, Warner Robins area, and further down towards the south, if you look closer towards Panama City, a very high risk of flooding simply because of all the rain they are expecting. Timing is something else we're going to be keeping an eye on with this system. If you look at the system now, still in the Gulf, but it is going to be making landfall closer towards about 1:30 later on Wednesday afternoon. After that, once we get to about 6 o'clock, this is when it should begin to move into Georgia. Our heaviest rain should also begin to move in closer towards 9, 10, or 11 o'clock, that time frame, and last up until 3 or 4. Now, we are going to see tropical storm or hurricane conditions lasting through about 6 or 7 a.m., but I do want to point out that heavy rain should be well out of our area by then, and even once it tracks into South Carolina, still going to be a tropical storm once it makes its way over there. One more thing I want to talk about is going to be potential rainfall. Like I mentioned before, it's not going to be like a Florence, Irma, or Harvey, but we could still see some very impressive totals across the area. I'm thinking 4 to 6 inches for a lot of places you see right there in the orange, and so that's why I'm going to put it second on the list of things to watch for in this system, right behind winds. Now, another thing to watch is going to be an isolated chance of tornadoes that can never be completely ruled on out with these storms. All right, last thing I want to point out on the 7-day forecast is that we are looking at fall to finally move on in before we get into the end of next week. So this storm is going to be the real official end of summer.